Good afternoon. So as the question was, in my intro saying, who am I? My name is Joe Nuspl, and I have been a developer, for my whole career. I started off being a kernel performance engineer at Sequent, and then I went to a startup, did a bunch of other stuff, and now doing operations engineering. So what are we talking about? Building authoritative resource sets. Where are we, Regency? If you're looking for something else, there's still time to leave. I won't be offended. When? Now, 2:20 Pacific time. Authoritative resource sets. So there's an old adage that the two hardest things in computer science is cache invalidation and naming things. So you can actually blame Matt Ray for the name. This came out of a pattern that we had been using, and I was talking to him at the summit, and we came up with this thing probably over not enough beers. We might have come up with something better. But what is an authoritative resource set? So it is a set of resources that only contains the resources defined by Chef. So, as most of you know, a Chef is action-based. Action is an actual keyword in the DSL. So you have action create, action delete. So I'm going to walk through an example, and I'm sure that probably people who have been in the Chef world for a while, this will be familiar to you. So, had a problem, and we were getting some 503 errors out of an Apache cluster, and they're like trying to figure out what it was and if there was time spikes and things like that. So coming through and doing some reports. So they're like, well, we need the stats. Great. Let's just add a cron resource. Now, this actually isn't what actually was used, but you get the idea. So you want to add the report. Cron job, get the report, gets mailed to the NOC. So this is going on for a while. They start using the data, they figure something else. And it's like, on day 5, woohoo, found it, flaky switch port, replace it. And then day 6, new switch port, the switch port replaced. Woohoo, we got 0 503 errors, problem solved. So going through, day 10. Still no 503 errors, problem solved. Hey, we don't need the 503 report anymore. So day 11, you do this, back from our previous thing. You just go ahead and delete the cron resource. You're shaking your head. You know where I'm going with this. Day 13, NOC calls. Why are we still receiving the 503 email? Aha, Chef is action-based. So we have to go through and clean up after ourselves. So the first solution you come back and do is, okay, we add, you add the report back in, action delete. So yes, it'll take care of it, but you don't want to accumulate a bunch of technical debt. Aha, add a comment, remove after 5.1. So show of hands, how many people who have done this actually go back and do these things? You're the exception back there, and I think you're lying.
I put to do.
Yeah, put to do.
To do, and I have a to do report.
Yes, good idea. So, and then plus, when you're starting to look at some of the action logs, you keep on seeing, well, it's trying to remove this, it's trying to remove this. So, solution 3, let's get it out of the action log. And this is just something I made up to go back and saying, oh, the cron tab exists. Let's delete it only if it's there. Okay? Still, all these things are yuck. Now, this example was pretty benign. So what if you get extra email? What if you did something stupid for internal testing and opened up RSH? Now, that's probably something you don't want to keep around. You kind of want that there when you're doing qualsys to make sure that you are actually catching these things, but then you turn it off. So this leads into the notion of the authoritative resource sets. So the idea is that Chef should automatically delete resources that are not part of the resource set of the current run. So, in other words, what it's really saying is that if you have the resource sets will create something physically on a server, and if it's not in the resource set, get it out of there, delete it. So the first place, we had been using this at Workday for many years, and the first place that we opened up the Zap pattern was for the syscontrol cookbook. So as you know, the way the syscontrol cookbook works, if you don't, it's sort of an rc.d directory where we have levels of things. And the problem is that there was one configuration where they were setting IP forwarding, and then they removed it, and then IP forwarding was still set up in a higher level, so it still got evaluated. So they had turned it off at a lower level, but at a higher level, it was being turned back on, head scratching, and so I fixed the syscontrol cookbook. Out of the summit, when I presented this last year, I said I was going to work and try to get the pieces open sourced. So that didn't go very well doing the legal department, so I did a clean room reimplementation. So what does it really look like? So you would zap, you have some resources, zap crontab. We're going to zap roots crontab. And what happens in there? So you can see we have, out of the chef run, you can see that we're putting in some cron resources saying that they were created, and then we're doing a zap of it. It walks through and says, oh, well, there's a resource for OSSEC, keep your temp watch, and this magic line here, which is we're zapping the 503 report. And then it actually goes through and adds a new resource in there, a cron resource that'll actually do the action delete. So another things to do on here, another pattern that's out there is the Zap Directory, which we use a lot. And you can do things, and since it's implemented as a heavyweight resource provider because I can reuse code on there, you can do things, notifies, and there's a thing on filter, because you may have in your etc tables.d, you may have readmes or something that have a description of things that are going on there, so you want to only remove the conf files. So, looking forward, coming soon, Zap services, Zap users, and Zap groups. These will be things that are coming that are in the works. Now, I have a warning for you. There's going to be a time where you start doing these things and it becomes second nature to you. And then you have something where somebody will go through and encounter a problem and going, man, don't we zap that? You're so used to doing that, and it was a new directory that we didn't zap on there. So it becomes, I guess, addictive, if you will, and you start utilizing it a lot of places. So I have a challenge for all of you. You know, as in the example before for IP tables, we had things that were going to sit there and say notifies, hey, we got to rebuild IP tables. So I want to create, have different recipes for different services and things that have different rules where you're wanting to do things. You know, how a while ago Apple had the thing of saying there's an app for that. I want to come back and say at the next, summit and conference and people are talking about things, and we can say, we've got a Zap for that to clean up after that resource. So, one more thing. Hangover or epiphany. So this morning I was sitting under scalding hot water and trying to wake up. And I came up and I had an epiphany, and I'm like, authoritative resource sets. It's crap. It's hard for people to understand. So the new name of this concept is garbage collecting system resources, because that's really what you're doing. So I want to thank you. You can look at my GitHub, and pull requests are always welcome. And I have office hours in Marina at 3 o'clock if anybody would like to talk to me. And I will also be up in the bar this evening with the Sanders, and we're going to finish out users and groups. So thank you very much. And I'm over time, but I didn't know if I've got probably about a minute for questions. Thank you.